In etude number 3, we're focusing on retakes in the first half of this etude. Retakes coming after a quarter note and coming after an eighth note, sometimes with string crossings, sometimes not. Then there's big chunks of eighth notes, and that is mostly about using a nice relaxed bow stroke that only happens from the elbow down. So you don't move your entire arm, you just focus on using the lower part of your arm, keeping this very relaxed and just hanging in place. For the left hand, what we've got going on in the second and third measures are called mordents, the squiggly over beat 4 in measure 2. I've taught these a lot of different ways. I've taught them as triplets that take up the full quarter. I've taught them as 2/16ths and an eighth note, but I've become more convinced that probably they're just 30-second notes at the beginning, and not an eighth, I guess, is what follows that. You'll hear it in the way that I play it. To me, the important thing is that they come on the beat, they're really clean. I only do one turn when I do them. I don't do them like a trill. I want to do them audibly enough. So if 30-second notes are too fast for you and they sound kind of messy, do them slower as 16th notes. It's more important that we hear the ornament clearly. I also feel like on our instrument, when we play low, and a lot of these mordents are pretty low, if you do a lot of them, like even with trilling, if you do a lot of it when you're low, it just doesn't come across as what it accurately is. The frequency is too low, and I think it's difficult for our ears to perceive what you're doing. So less is more in this case. Again, I'll stop as I go through this etude, and I'll give some suggestions about how to practice. In this next section, we have the retake after the eighth note. So that's a really quick motion. You're not going to keep the bow going in the same direction and not retake, which I've seen a lot of people do. It's not the same sound. You need to pick the bow up and come back down. You have more time than you think to do this. So make sure you hear a good quality eighth note, a really good sound before you leave to do the retake for the D. So at the very beginning, we start with a quarter note retake into a half note in measure 2. I'm going to show this in slow motion. What you want to do, play your quarter note. So I'm doing a really low circle back. This is not a high motion. That's just going to give you too much bounce in the bow when you come back to the string. I also want to play that quarter note as long as possible, but I'm still going to be conservative with the bow. I don't want to shoot the bow there, or I'm going to have more room to retake. So keeping a smaller amount of bow for the quarter note, but still a beautiful sounding full valued note. When you practice this, I want you to put some space between the G and the F. Plant. Always start the new stroke from the string. Here's what happens if I don't do that. Yeah, not beautiful. So start from the string so that you've released all the energy in the bow from that motion of resetting to the string. And I'm going to skip ahead now when it's time to play this in the next line and you have an eighth followed by a quarter in the middle of line 2. It's exactly the same thing. So when you practice this, do the same thing. Play the eighth note in time, set the bow, take as much time as you need to really set the bow for the quarter note, that D that follows it. That's how I think they're phrased anyways, that it goes over the bar line to the eighth note, and then is the beginning of the next phrase. It's the pickup to the G. So if you can think about that way, it may help you to really phrase this and to not get crazy with the bow as you do the retake. So it's a really small circle. Here's that retake in time. Actually, I think he may have stopped a little bit earlier than this too. I just think it's part of working through the Samandal method book is that you need to really absorb what the bowing is for that rhythm. If you need to write it in later in, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what he's trying to do is just train us to see the rhythm, remember the bowing. So every time you have a syncopation like this, when you hit that in orchestra music, you'll know, okay, I've got to get right off that eighth note and get onto a new down bow to make this bowing work out well.